Hi, and welcome to this Weekday Word. The New Testament passage appointed in the daily office today comes from the second chapter of Paul's letter to the Christians in Philippi, the well-known chapter of the Christ hymn, verses 5 through 11. It's interesting to look at this passage, though, and juxtapose it with a passage that we had just a couple of Sundays ago in the parable of the rich fool. And so in the lead-in to that great Christ hymn, Paul writes this. He says, if there is any encouragement in Christ, any comfort from love, any participation in the Spirit, any affection and sympathy, complete my joy by being of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each one of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself. In the parable of the rich fool, we meet a man who accumulated great, abundant blessing, but failed to acknowledge that it came from God, and instead saw it as his own. And so his solution was not to bless anyone else with it, not to talk about any significant people in his life about what to do with it, not to talk to God about what to do with it, but instead to build larger barns and storehouses so that he could hold on to it. And out of that, Jesus teaches us that we are not to have such a grasping attitude, such an uncharitable attitude, a greedy attitude, but instead we are to be generous. It's interesting when we take that kind of vision and then read this great second chapter of Philippians through that lens. We are not in Luke chapter 13 to have a grasping attitude. And so it's no surprise that Paul, as he writes to the Philippians, says that we are not to have a grasping attitude. Why? Because we're to have this mind among ourselves, which is ours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God something to be grasped, but instead emptied himself, had a generous spirit. We are called to be generous because God is generous. We are called to give of ourselves, of our time, our treasure, our money, our talent. We're called to be generous because God is generous. And so when we are being generous, being like God, we're living into what we were always meant to be as we were created in the image of God. And so Paul says that we are to look out for the interests of others, not just our own. And to put that in slightly different words, then, we're meant to have attitudes of grace and love. We're to look not selfishly at just ourselves, but we're to look at our lives and ask how we can be a blessing to those around us. And so I want to encourage you today to simply ask yourself this question: how can I use what I have today to make someone else's life better? And then do it. And as you do, watch what happens to you. Yes, they will be blessed, but what you'll find is you're the one who is truly most blessed. Why? Because you are becoming what you were always meant to be, living into the image of our generous and loving God. Be blessed this day as you are a blessing, and I look forward to seeing you soon.